Today. We're going to go ahead and talk about a remote support integration with ServiceNow using BombGuard. My name is Shane Brazil. I'm a partnership manager, meaning I manage the architecture and development for all our channel partner integrations such as BombGuard, and I also architect some of our larger ServiceNow implementations. So we'll go ahead and get started and talk a little bit about who Fruition Partners is. So we have over 100 cloud experts that can help you elevate service management to the cloud. We have over 200 ServiceNow implementations. Somewhere, I think the number now is 230 successful ServiceNow implementations done at Fruition Partners. And we also have 10 plus years of ITIL and service management experience. So just a few quick numbers there about who we are. And then we offer multiple services at Fruition Partners, one of which is integrations, which we're going to talk about today. So the BombGuard integration is part of our integration services offering. We also deal with implementations, consulting, development, and managed services. So let's go ahead and dive in and start talking about BombGuard. So looking at BombGuard at a high-level view, it provides enterprise remote support. So one of their main highlights is how secure it is, right? So it's not like a point-to-point. All the traffic actually goes through what they call the BombGuard appliance, and we'll get into that here on the next slide and how that all works together. It's real-time, so you're working real-time with end users to help them work through issues on their desktops or PCs or iPhones. And then it's very collaborative, so you can actually invite other representatives on to join you so that multiple reps can be working on the same issue and things like that. Pretty large customer base, so 6,600 plus customers in over 65 countries. And then on the right-hand side there, you can see some of their enterprise implementations, such as the U.S. Air Force, right? So security is huge for BombGuard, and that's why the U.S. Air Force uses them. And they are actually one of the fastest-growing software companies. So that's just another note about BombGuard. So let's talk a little bit about how BombGuard works. So looking at this diagram on the left-hand side here, we see a support desk representative. So they're using ServiceNow as their ticketing system, right? And above them, they can actually use BombGuard on their PC, their Mac, on an iPad, on an Android, to actually provide support to your end users. And you can see here that all the traffic is actually funneled through this BombGuard appliance over to your customer. And that customer can be on an iPhone, iOS, BlackBerry, mobile, Windows mobile device, and they can actually get help on those devices with BombGuard. Or you can actually use BombGuard on remote clients. So you can actually jump to servers and take control of those servers and deploy patches and things like that. And we'll walk through some of these use cases here as the webinar goes on. So we mentioned collaboration. So BombGuard can actually help you bring down your mean time to resolve by inviting external representatives or other level 3, tier 3 representatives onto the same support session, so multiple people can tackle an issue at one time. Obviously, this is improving first call resolution since we're literally getting from the customer, getting that ticket submitted, working with the customer, and getting that resolved right there on that first call using BombGuard. And then BombGuard actually has the capability to record what's done, so you can actually provide those videos so that you can use that as training material, or you can actually have that tier 1 rep on while the tier 3 representative fixes that computer, and they can actually learn that watching that on the session in real time. So we'll talk about today the integration, and you'll see how BombGuard works. And there's 3 use cases that I'm going to demo. The first being that a support desk representative starts a BombGuard session from a submitted ticket in ServiceNow. So in our case, it's going to be an incident. We'll also see that a service desk representative or anybody with really the ITIL license, or you can limit it down, can jump to a server from an approved change request record, from an incident record, anything like that. And then the last use case is an end user can actually get support using BombGuard from a submitted ticket. So they can actually log into the ESS self-service or CMS portal, submit a ticket, and then actually start getting support with BombGuard from a support desk rep. So without any further ado, we'll go ahead and actually get into a live demo. So give me 1 second to pull up my instance. So this right here should look pretty familiar. I'm just showing my demo instance of ServiceNow, and I have up a submitted incident record. So you can see here, this user can't access their email. So I'll play the role of the support desk rep. And so I'm working with this end user on the phone right now. And at this point, I know we need to use BombGuard to maybe take a look at what's going on their PC or their Mac or anything like that, right? So what I can actually do is, on my submitted ticket, you can see here I have this BombGuard session key button. So if I actually click on this BombGuard session key button, I can start a BombGuard session from ServiceNow and work with that end user a little bit more. So if I'm on the phone, I can actually read off this 7-digit session key number to that end user and have them enter that. And so really quick, let's flip over to show what that looks like, right? So if I pull up this virtual machine and I'm the end user, you can see here that in ServiceNow I have this BombGuard module. So if I click on this, it's actually going to pull up the BombGuard portal. So if I enter that session key as I'm an end user and the service desk rep is reading me that, I can enter that in here and submit it to start the session. So that's one of the options, and we'll actually walk through that here in a second. If we come back, there's also a URL. So maybe if I'm using ServiceNow chat, I can actually paste this URL in the chat section. The end user can then just click on that link, and that will start the session for them as well. Or I actually have this button here that I can click, and then I'll actually send an email out to the caller of the ticket with the instructions on how to start the session. So a couple different ways the support desk rep can get the end user on this session. So let's go ahead and copy this session key and hop over to the virtual machine here and enter that. So the support desk rep reads me that session key. I enter that here. I go ahead and hit submit. So what BombGuard is actually going to do, it's going to download a small client that's going to run as a service. So it'll go ahead and connect through the BombGuard appliance, right? So everything's working through the BombGuard appliance. And while it's connected here, we'll see on my support desk rep screen, once this chat session starts, I'll get an alert on my computer, right, telling me that there's a BombGuard session in my personal queue. Since I'm the user that, or the support desk rep that started that session for my submitted incident in ServiceNow, it knows to put that on my personal queue as a support desk rep. So if I shoot over to my BombGuard representative console, you can see here that as a support desk rep, I have a couple different queues I can work from, one being my personal queue, and that's where that session starts out at. So I'll go ahead and accept this session. From here you can see I actually have the ability to use a couple canned chat messages. So I actually send them a welcome canned message. So let's go ahead and pop back to that virtual machine and see what the end user is viewing right now. So now you can see that they can chat back. So for BombGuard, we can be chatting back and forth with that end user. And let's say at this point we decide we actually need to take control of their screen and start looking at what they're seeing. So I'll go ahead and request the end user allows me to start viewing their screen. So if we go back to that end user view, you'll see they get prompted. So I'll go ahead and allow the representative to view my screen. So now let's tap back to that BombGuard representative console. And from here you can actually see that I am now viewing that customer screen, and I can actually start taking actions here and taking a look at what might be going on in their computer. Keep in mind this is all recorded, and actually we'll show how it's linked back into ServiceNow at a later date so you can watch this recording from ServiceNow. As you can see, BombGuard has quite a few features up here, all these different buttons. Some things like, let's say you're on a very bad internet connection, you're trying to support people, and maybe you're on a hotspot. You can actually configure the bandwidth to give you better performance based on that. You can take screenshots and save them as PDFs. A whole bunch of different options there that we really don't have time to go into all the features of BombGuard, but quite a few as you can see. Next, let's skip over a tab to the File Transfer tab. So BombGuard gives us the ability to transfer files back and forth between the local and remote machine, so I can move files from that support desk computer over to the end user and vice versa. And that's, once again, all logged and audited, right? All this traffic's going through the BombGuard appliance and getting recorded and logged, so it's all easy to report on, as well as it comes back into ServiceNow, as we'll see. Another great thing is we can actually run CLI type interface from the BombGuard Rep Console. So let me go ahead and start this. So once again, we're actually going to prompt that end user to allow us to run some command shell scripts. So I'll go ahead and allow that. So if we hop back to the BombGuard representative console here, you can see that I can now take control of their command line interface. And then BombGuard once again has the ability to set up canned messages that you can set up for certain groups. So you can see here we have a few ones out here that are popular, but you can actually customize these, add them, and then actually filter these out. So certain groups should only be running certain CLI things. So let's go ahead and run the get IP information script here. See here that's all pulled back into BombGuard, and once again secure, it's audited through that BombGuard appliance. Next tab here, let's say we wanted to actually look at maybe how much memory they have, and that might be related to their issue. So I can actually pull back from BombGuard some advanced system information about that end user's computer. So if we hop back now to the end user's computer, you can see here that it prompted the end user to allow us to view the system information. We'll go ahead and allow the support desk rep. So let's go ahead and hop back now to our service desk rep view. And you can see here it's pulling back detailed information about that end user's computer. One of the nice things about this integration, right, is that we're not having to hop back and forth in between ServiceNow and the BombGuard Rep Console as we're working. So if we need to log work notes, we can actually log the work notes on this Rep Console, and then those will get pushed back into ServiceNow so that we're not having to hop back and forth between the two interfaces. So for example, let's say the fact that my computer is running with 70% memory load is an issue, so I'll go ahead and click on this little copy button. If we go ahead and go to the summary tab here, I can actually be submitting work notes, like I said, as the session goes along, and these will make their way back into ServiceNow. If for some reason you needed to pull up ServiceNow from here, let's say you close your browser on accident and you wanted to see the ticket or pull back some information, there is a custom link button here right here that actually will open up that ServiceNow ticket if you do lose that context. So it is easy to hop back and forth, but definitely not necessary most of the time. So let's go ahead and close up the session. So at this point, we'll say that we found the issue, we resolved the issue, and let's go ahead and close this out. So I'll go ahead and end the session from this BombGuard Rep Console. So we'll see here that if we go over to the end user's view, that client that was downloaded on their computer is actually uninstalled, and now they're prompted with this survey asking them how the session was. So we'll go ahead and give myself a 5 and say it was great. So that end user can then provide us feedback on the support session working with that service desk rep. So now let's take a step back and let's hop back into BombGuard, the service desk rep, and see those details come back into the system. So let's go ahead and close out here and reload this form. So you can see here now that if we look at the activity log, a couple notes logged here, right? I actually generated the BombGuard session key. That's logged, so I did click on that button and generate a session key, and then you can see here that the BombGuard session was completed. And then you can actually see some of those work notes that I logged on the BombGuard Rep Console are wrapped up into the incident record itself. If we go down here to the very bottom of the form on the related list, you can see there's a BombGuard Sessions tab. So any BombGuard sessions that were started from the context of this incident can actually be drilled into. So from here you can see there's some basic information around the BombGuard session, including IP information and just some details around who the representative was, the duration of the session, things like that. You also notice that all the chat that happened throughout that session, right, is all logged and stored back here. So the whole chat history is logged, as well as those work notes. So those work notes got brought up to the incident form as well as just on the BombGuard session record itself. If we would have transferred any files back and forth, you'll see here that we'd obviously see the count of files as well as which files were transferred and the size of each file. On the Command Shell tab, we actually see that we can view the session, so we can actually view any CLI scripts that were run or download that session. So it's a recording of that session. System information, so any system information that we retrieved using BombGuard during that session is logged here on the BombGuard session tab. So anything from, obviously the general information, memory, all the good stuff that BombGuard pulls back is logged here. And then lastly, right, that session that the end user took at the end of their session is brought back and linked with this incident and with this BombGuard session record. So if we actually click in here, we should see that I gave myself a 5 and my comment for it was great. So all that information that's occurring during the BombGuard session, right, gets brought back into ServiceNow and linked with the incident record. So why is this a good thing, right? Well, it provides us some useful metrics that we can actually use. So if we go under our BombGuard application here and we look at the home page, not the properties page, we can actually see here that we can use ServiceNow's reporting engine to actually bring us back some useful metrics and details around who's using BombGuard. So, which representative in our organization is utilizing BombGuard the most. Maybe which incidents, or there are a few incidents out there that are, using BombGuard, here 60 times or things like that, right? Probably not happening in real life. And then what category of incidents, right, are using BombGuard? So here we see that inquiry help categorization, or that category is turning into BombGuard sessions the most. So a lot of different things you can do, right, based on that BombGuard session tab. And then also the survey results. So you can see here what kind of rating are my representatives getting when they're using BombGuard. And actually, let's take one step back because I forgot about a pretty cool part of that BombGuard session. So if we actually go back to the BombGuard session record here too, you'll see here that there's this View Session Recording button, right? So if I click on this, what it's going to actually do is that screen sharing session that took place during that session is actually recorded, right? So we can actually view and play back this recording, which can be used for training or auditing purposes. So we want to verify that they didn't open up any files that they shouldn't, or just to provide another tech some training material to watch what happened during that session. So once again, that's actually logged on that BombGuard appliance, and then we link to it in ServiceNow to where we can actually pull it up and view it. So that's the first use case, right? So the service desk rep is taking a call with an end user, and then they can start that session from ServiceNow, and all those details may find their way back into ServiceNow. So if we actually pull up that incident, there's one thing here that the second use case, right, was that we can jump to unattended machines or servers, or even PCs, right, from a CI field in ServiceNow. So in this case, you'll see that I have a couple of buttons here on my configuration item field. So what this allows me to do, and there's a couple different ways this can be utilized, right? So the main way that we like to talk about it is, let's say you have a change request record that goes through its life cycle. It gets approved by CAB, and essentially the change request is to deploy a patch to a server. You can actually then use this button on that change request record. So if we pull up a change request record, same thing. Once I fill in that CI, I can actually then jump to that server using BombGuard via their jump client technology, take control of that machine, deploy the server while that's all recorded, and then all those details are brought back into ServiceNow and linked to this change request, just like they are for incidents. So essentially, same life cycle, right? The session started from ServiceNow via the CI field. We jump to the machine, we deploy the patch, do anything else we need to do. Once again, that's all going through that BombGuard appliance and logging that. And we bring all those details back into ServiceNow. So that's use case number 2. And once again, that can be done from any task-based table in ServiceNow, such as incident, change request, problem. So we have the ability to use BombGuard, right, from any task-based table in the system out of box. Last use case that I want to cover is an end user. So if I'm an end user, I can actually submit tickets in ServiceNow via the employee self-service page, or via a CMS portal. Both of those then allow me to actually get support from a BombGuard representative or representative, sorry, using BombGuard. So let me flip over to that virtual machine again. Let's actually close out my last two tabs here and come into a submitted incident. So I'm an end user here. I submitted a ticket. You can see that my short description here is that I can't print. One thing you'll notice is that there's this Get Support Now button. So what this does is after I submit my ticket in ServiceNow, I can actually click on the Get Support Now button, and that will actually start a BombGuard chat session and then put that out in the queue for any support desk rep that's available to pick that up. So let's go ahead and click that button. So I've actually submitted my ticket, now I just need some help. So you'll see here that we pull up a click to chat session with BombGuard. And once again, this is going through that BombGuard appliance. So if we hop back to the support desk rep view, right, you'll see here that I'm getting prompted that there's a session waiting for somebody to pick up out in the general queue. So let me pull up my BombGuard representative console. You can see here that I'm prompted, right? There's a session in the queue that needs to be picked up, and this is actually going to go through and prompt any available representatives. This is a feature of BombGuard called Equilibrium. So you can see that I have the ability to pick this session up and start chatting with that end user, or if I'm busy doing something else, I can reject it and let the next support representative pick that up. If I pick this up, same cycle, right? I can start this session with that end user, provide them support, whether that's screen sharing, transferring files, anything like that. And then once that's complete, same way it did for the other two use cases, all those details will get logged back into ServiceNow on that BombGuard session record in ServiceNow. So those are the three use cases, right? So whether I'm a support desk rep and I want to start a session from the ticket I submitted in ServiceNow for a customer, whether I'm an owner of a server and I need to go deploy a patch after a change request gets approved to do so, or if I'm just an end user and I submit a ticket and I need to get help right away. Those are three options with the integration that we've developed at Fruition Partners with BombGuard and ServiceNow. So let me go ahead and reject this for now. And let's actually hop back into the ServiceNow to just take a quick look at the BombGuard application. So we already went through the home page, right? So the benefit with bringing this data back and forth, not only for auditing and logging purposes, is we can run some useful reports and get a little bit more insight into how BombGuard is being used in our environment to support users on or off through VPN, on any kind of devices, things like that, right? The good thing about the way that we've architected this integration is that there's actually a properties page, right? So you can see here there's some standard things such as the instance name of my BombGuard appliance and an API user, but a lot of different options are down here as far as checkboxes go. So things like, do we want to log certain pieces of that BombGuard session that gets pulled back? Or do you want end users to be able to get support now from a submitted ticket? These are all done via checkboxes on that properties page, right? So you don't have to go into our script and modify code to get this integration working the way you want it. It's as easy as just coming to the properties page and toggling on and off a few checkboxes and personalizing it to work for your requirements, right? As far as the integration goes, it's very straightforward to set up. We utilize ServiceNow to update set capabilities, right, to deploy this integration out. And both BombGuard and ServiceNow the whole time are talking back and forth over port 443, so HTTPS. So you just need to have that line of communication between ServiceNow and your BombGuard appliance open. So it's a very straightforward integration to deploy. And it's been around since, I think, fall of 2010 on ServiceNow, and now it's on Berlin, and there have been no upgrade issues at all. So very robust integration that handles ServiceNow upgrades very well. And that is kind of the integration in a little bit about BombGuard as a whole. Obviously, there's a lot of capability with BombGuard that we'd love to talk about. If you're more interested in doing a deep dive on BombGuard, that's something that we definitely can do. But at this point, we've covered the integration in a high-level overview of what BombGuard is. So really, let's go ahead and just open it up for any questions that you might have. So as far as the webinar that just went on. It is recorded and will be available on our website within 2 weeks. So you will receive an email if you sign up for this webinar. So that will definitely be posted. So if you have any questions right now, you can go ahead and log them on the GoToMeeting screen here, and we can actually, and I'll work to answer those. So one good question, how long does an implementation take? Days, hours, months, things like that, right? So as far as how long it takes, it actually takes about 2 hours at most to get this integration up and running. So usually we work with your ServiceNow administrator and a BombGuard administrator, and given that the network, right, is allowing those two things to work back and forth, we actually, it takes about 2 hours to get the integration deployed, up and running, and off for UAT testing. So it's a pretty easy integration to get going. It's pre-packaged, and we've done it with multiple clients. Probably at least 15 clients are live with it, and so it's always been a smooth process. So there's no issue there as far as work or level of effort. Good question. Do you need local admin rights on the end user workstation? No. So since that runs as a service, it doesn't actually, the end user doesn't need admin rights on their machine for them to get support. Let's see here, keep on going through here. Who has, so who has access to see the recorded sessions? So via the BombGuard login screen, you can actually set up who has those capabilities. So if it's all your support desk reps, if only certain users that need to be able to view that can all be controlled via the BombGuard login or the login interface. So you can definitely control who is viewing the recorded sessions in ServiceNow via your BombGuard appliance. What's the difference between ServiceNow Chat and BombGuard? What do I get with BombGuard Chat that differentiates itself from ServiceNow? So ServiceNow Chat, you can obviously chat back and forth with members of the service desk or end users and submit tickets from those chat actions in ServiceNow. BombGuard Chat, obviously, once that's already on their machine, we can easily start a BombGuard support session. So you can utilize both ServiceNow Chat and BombGuard Chat. The main difference there, right, is that if we're using ServiceNow Chat to begin with, at some point, if we want to use BombGuard, we're going to have to switch and start a BombGuard session to view their screen and things like that. So it's just that handover there that would need to be taken care of. So essentially, another question, can you explain a little bit more about the BombGuard appliance? So where does it reside essentially in a customer's network? So the BombGuard appliance usually sits internal to your network. So let me go ahead and pull up that slide really quick here. So you can see here the BombGuard appliance itself, right, sits inside your network, a customer's network, and it can actually be either a virtual or a physical appliance. So essentially, as far as firewall rules go, right, the customer on or off VPN can get access to that, and so can the support desk rep. So that's in your network, and then ServiceNow is talking to it via HTTPS. Another question, when ServiceNow has upgrades like Berlin, who tests the integration against the new ServiceNow release? And then are we responsible for configuring BombGuard and the integration on a go-forward basis? So the way it works currently, right, so after which partners we own the integration, and we actually, right when a new version comes out of ServiceNow, we actually do any regression testing and verify that everything works on our new upgrade. So like I said, we've gone through several upgrades now. And once again, right when we get that first upgrade, we actually test that, verify that all that functionality works. And then, we haven't had to deploy a fix yet, but if that were the case, we definitely could. How does BombGuard licensing work? So BombGuard is actually a concurrent license model. So if you have 10 support desk representatives, and only 5 will be using BombGuard at one time, right? You would buy 5 BombGuard licenses, and it's actually a perpetual model. So you buy the technology, the appliance, and the licenses one time, and the only recurring cost, which is optional after your first year, would be BombGuard maintenance. As far as the BombGuard appliance goes, so we saw it with a pretty unbranded version, right? So from BombGuard, we have the capability to brand it as well, just like we brand ServiceNow. So one good question that came up, right, is can we brand this BombGuard interface? So just like we can ServiceNow, we can actually add your logo here and change the CSS to match your CSS requirements. So that's definitely something that's possible with BombGuard as well, so you can personalize that. Any other questions? As far as, this is a good one, a little bit more about the iPad representative console. So as far as a support representative using their iPad to support end users, you can pretty much support an end user from your iPad, so you can view their screen and work with the end user from an iPad. So that console is very functional. Any other questions before we wrap up? Well, looks like I don't see any more questions. Want to thank everyone for taking your time to watch our webinar. And once again, this has been recorded and will be posted here on our website within the next 2 weeks. Feel free to